The first thing you learn in Antarctica is that the cold isn't just a number on a thermometer. It's a living thing, a predator that waits for you to make a mistake. I've been deployed to some of the worst places on Earth. Jungles that rot your skin, deserts that bake your bones, cities where every shadow hides a rifle. But nothing prepared me for the silence and the cold of the bottom of the world. My name is Staff Sergeant Mason Carter, United States Special Forces. I've been in the Army for 12 years, and I thought I'd seen everything. Then I got the call for Operation White Halo. They told us it was a joint mission, US, UK, and a couple of scientists from the European Polar Research Initiative. The briefing was vague, just enough to make you nervous. Unusual seismic activity, possible threat to international research, need for discretion. The kind of language that means something's gone wrong, and they don't want to say what. We landed at McMurdo Station in the middle of the Antarctic night, which is to say, it was always night. The sun wouldn't rise for another 3 weeks. The wind was a constant scream, and the snow was so fine it got into your teeth. Our team was 6 men, all handpicked, all with more deployments than birthdays. Captain Harris was in charge, a Brit with a face like a granite cliff. There was also Dr. Elena Markova, a Russian geophysicist, and Dr. James Patel, a British biologist. They looked as nervous as we felt. The first rule in Antarctica: never go outside alone. The cold will kill you faster than a bullet, and if you get lost, no one will find you until the spring thaw. We were briefed on the rules as soon as we arrived. Some were standard: check your gear, log your movements, always carry a radio. But there were others that made the hair on my neck stand up. Rule 1: never go outside alone. Rule 2: if you see lights on the ice at night, do not approach. Rule 3: if you hear singing, return to base immediately. Rule 4: if you find anything in the ice that looks like a body, do not touch it. Rule 5: if you dream of wings, report to medical. I thought it was a joke, some kind of hazing for the new arrivals. But the way the station chief, Dr. Hargrove, looked at us, like he was memorizing our faces, made me wonder. We spent the first 2 days getting acclimated. The scientists ran tests, checked their instruments, and argued in low voices. The rest of us checked the perimeter, inventoried supplies, and tried not to think about the rules. The cold was a constant pressure, a reminder that we didn't belong here. On the 3rd night, the alarms went off. A seismic sensor had picked up a deep tremor 20 miles from the station, near an old Soviet outpost called Vostok 7. The place had been abandoned for decades, but now something was moving under the ice. Captain Harris called us into the comms room. The map on the screen showed a red dot pulsing in the middle of nowhere. "We're going out there," he said. "The scientists need samples, and Command wants eyes on whatever's causing this." We geared up: thermal suits, oxygen masks, rifles. The wind outside was a living wall, and the snow was so thick you could barely see your own boots. We moved in pairs, each man tethered to the next by a length of climbing rope. The rules echoed in my head with every step. We reached Vostok 7 after 6 hours of trudging through the dark. The outpost was a cluster of metal huts half buried in snow, windows frosted over, doors hanging open. The place felt wrong, like a graveyard. Dr. Markova set up her instruments, and Dr. Patel started taking ice cores. The rest of us spread out, checking the buildings. That's when I saw the lights. At first, I thought it was a trick of the wind, reflections off the ice, maybe. But the lights were moving, weaving across the snow in slow, deliberate patterns. They were blue and white, almost beautiful, and they made no sound. I remembered Rule 2. If you see lights on the ice at night, do not approach. I called it in. Harris, this is Carter. I've got visual on anomalous lights, north side of the outpost. Awaiting instructions. There was a long pause. Then Harris's voice, tight and low, fall back to the main hut. Now, we regrouped, the scientists packing up their gear in a hurry. The lights kept moving, circling the outpost, getting closer. I could feel the cold pressing in, sharper than before, like needles under my skin. We made it back to the main hut and locked the door. The lights stopped outside, hovering in the darkness. Dr. Markova was shaking, her breath fogging the air. They are not natural, she whispered. I have seen this before in Siberia. They come before the singing. No one slept that night. The wind howled, and sometimes, just at the edge of hearing, I thought I could make out a melody, soft, wordless, and impossibly sad. At dawn, the lights were gone. We packed up and started back to McMurdo, moving faster than before. No one spoke. The rules were no longer a joke. That was the first night I dreamed of wings. I woke up gasping, tangled in my sleeping bag, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. The dream was already fading, but I remembered the sensation of falling, icy wind tearing at my face, feathers brushing my skin, a voice whispering in a language I didn't know. I sat up, shivering, and checked my watch. For 17. The rest of the team was still asleep, except for Dr. Markova, who sat at the table, staring at a mug of coffee gone cold. She looked up when I moved. You dreamed, didn't you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. She pushed a notebook across the table. Write it down. Every detail, even if it makes no sense. I hesitated, but the look in her eyes was enough. I wrote what I could remember. The wings, the cold, the voice. When I finished, she took the notebook and tucked it into her bag without another word. The next day, the weather turned. A whiteout rolled in, trapping us at McMurdo for 48 hours. The wind battered the walls, and the temperature dropped to -60. We passed the time with maintenance checks and card games, but no one really relaxed. The rules were posted on every door now, printed in bold letters. I caught Harris reading them more than once, his lips moving silently. On the second night, Dr. Patel started humming. At first, it was just a low, tuneless sound, but it grew louder, more insistent. I found him in the rec room, staring out the window at the endless dark. His eyes were glassy, unfocused. James, I said, touching his shoulder. He didn't react. The humming grew into a song, a melody that made my skin crawl. I shook him harder. James. He blinked, as if waking from a trance. Sorry, he muttered, rubbing his eyes. I don't know what came over me. I reported it to Dr. Hargrove, who added a new rule to the list. If you hear someone singing, do not let them outside. The storm finally broke on the third day. The sky was a flat, colorless gray, and the snow had drifted up to the windows. We dug out the doors and checked the perimeter. Everything seemed normal, but the sense of unease lingered. That afternoon, a message came in from the Norwegian station at Troll. They'd picked up a strange signal on their seismic monitors, something deep, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The coordinates matched the area near Vostok 7. Command wanted us to investigate. We geared up again, this time with extra supplies, and a portable generator. The scientists were jumpy, but determined. Harris briefed us before we left. "Same rules as before," he said, his voice hard. "No one goes anywhere alone. No one touches anything in the ice. If you see or hear anything strange, you report it immediately." "Understood." We nodded. The rules were gospel now. The journey back to Vostok 7 was worse than the first. The wind had carved the snow into jagged ridges, and the cold was so intense it felt like breathing glass. We moved in silence, each man lost in his own thoughts. When we reached the outpost, we found something new. A fissure had opened in the ice, a jagged crack running for hundreds of meters. The edges were sharp, almost crystalline, and a faint blue light pulsed from deep within. Dr. Markova set up her instruments, her hands shaking. "This is not natural," she said. "The ice should not fracture like this." Dr. Patel lowered a sensor into the fissure. The readout spiked, then flatlined. "There's something down there," he said, his voice tight. "Something big." Harris ordered us to secure the area. I took the first watch, circling the perimeter with my rifle slung across my chest. The wind had died, leaving an unnatural silence. I kept glancing at the fissure, half expecting something to crawl out. As night fell, the blue light grew brighter. It shimmered on the ice, casting long, twisted shadows. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see Dr. Markova, her face pale. "I need to show you something," she said, leading me to her tent. She pulled out her notebook and flipped to a page filled with sketches, wings, eyes, symbols I didn't recognize. "I've seen these before," she whispered. "In old Russian texts. Stories of angels that fell from the sky, frozen in the earth. They say the ice keeps them asleep, but if the ice breaks..." She trailed off, her hands trembling. I tried to reassure her, but the words felt hollow. The rules didn't cover this. Nothing did. That night, I dreamed again. This time, the wings were closer. I could feel the wind, hear the singing, taste the cold. When I woke, my skin was covered in frost. The next morning, we found Dr. Patel standing at the edge of the fissure, staring down into the blue light. He didn't respond when we called his name. Harris had to drag him away, his boots leaving long grooves in the snow. We were losing control. The rules were all we had left. We set up camp farther from the fissure that night, but it didn't help. The blue light pulsed through the ice, casting strange patterns on the walls of our tents. No one slept. I lay awake, listening to the wind and the distant, almost imperceptible sound of singing. It was like a lullaby, but wrong, too old, too sad, echoing in a language I couldn't place. At 3 o'clock, Harris called a meeting in the main tent. His face was drawn, eyes bloodshot. "We're pulling out at first light," he said. "We'll leave a marker for the Norwegians and let command handle this. We're not equipped for whatever this is." No one argued. Even the scientists looked relieved. We started packing up, moving quietly, as if afraid to wake something sleeping beneath the ice. That's when the ground shook. It was subtle at first, a low rumble, like distant thunder. Then the fissure widened with a sharp, cracking sound. The blue light flared, blinding for a moment. We stumbled outside, weapons ready, as the snow around the fissure began to collapse inward. Something was rising from the depths. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow, a mirage. But then I saw the outline, a massive figure, encased in ice, wings folded around its body. The ice was clear, shot through with veins of blue light, and inside was something that looked almost human. Almost. Its face was beautiful and terrible, features too perfect to be real. The wings were enormous, each feather etched in frost. Its eyes were closed, but I could feel it watching us. Dr. Markova gasped, dropping to her knees. "It's real," she whispered. The stories were true. Harris barked orders, but no one moved. We were transfixed, caught between awe and terror. The figure in the ice didn't move, but the light around it pulsed in time with the rumbling earth. Then, slowly, its eyes opened. They were not human eyes. They were deep, endless, filled with a cold that went beyond temperature, a cold that was ancient, cosmic, indifferent. I felt something inside me recoil, a primal fear older than language. The singing grew louder, filling the air, vibrating in my bones. I saw Dr. Patel stagger forward, arms outstretched, tears streaming down his face. "It's beautiful," he sobbed. "Don't you hear it? It's calling us home." Harris grabbed him, pulling him back. "Stay away from it," he shouted. "No one touches the ice." But it was too late. The fissure widened again, and a wave of cold swept over us, knocking us to the ground. My vision blurred, and for a moment, I thought I saw wings unfolding, stretching toward the sky. I crawled back, dragging Dr. Markova with me. She was muttering in Russian, clutching her notebook to her chest. The others were scattered, some on their knees, some flat on the snow, all staring at the figure in the ice. The singing stopped as suddenly as it had begun. The blue light faded, leaving only the pale glow of our headlamps. The figure's eyes closed again, and the earth was silent. We regrouped, shaken and half frozen. Harris took charge, his voice steady but strained. "We're leaving. Now, grab only what you need." We moved fast, abandoning most of our equipment. The fissure was still glowing faintly, but the figure inside was motionless. As we retreated, I looked back one last time. The wings were still folded, but I could have sworn they twitched, just a fraction. The journey back to McMurdo was a blur. We moved in silence, each man lost in his own thoughts. The rules had kept us alive, but they hadn't prepared us for this. When we finally reached the station, Dr. Hargrove met us at the door. He took one look at our faces and nodded. "Quarantine," he said. "All of you. No exceptions." We were confined to a separate wing of the station, our gear taken for decontamination. Medical staff checked us for frostbite, hypothermia, and anything else they could think of. But the real damage was inside: nightmares, whispers, a sense of something watching from the dark. On the second night, Dr. Patel disappeared. He left no note, no sign of struggle. The cameras showed him walking calmly to the airlock, suiting up, and stepping out into the endless night. He didn't look back. We searched for him, of course. Sent out teams, scanned the ice for miles. But he was gone, swallowed by the cold and the dark. After that, the rules changed again. Rule 6. If someone disappears, do not search for them. Rule 7. If you dream of wings more than once, report to command. I started to wonder how many rules there really were, and how many we'd never been told. The days blurred together after Dr. Patel vanished. We were kept in quarantine, but it felt more like a holding cell. The medical staff checked us twice a day, asking the same questions. Any unusual dreams? Any ringing in your ears? Any urge to go outside? I lied every time. I wasn't the only one. Harris grew more withdrawn, spending hours staring out the window at the endless white. Dr. Markova filled page after page in her notebook, sketching wings, eyes, and strange symbols. The rest of the team kept to themselves, haunted by memories of the fissure and the thing inside it. I tried to sleep, but the dreams always found me. Wings of ice, voices singing in the dark, a face both beautiful and terrifying. Sometimes I woke with frost on my skin, my breath hanging in the air like smoke. I stopped telling the doctors. I didn't want to be sedated, or worse, sent outside. On the 5th day, the radio crackled to life. A supply convoy was coming in from the coast, 3 tracked vehicles, a dozen men. They were bringing food, fuel, and a new team of scientists. The station chief called us to the comms room for a briefing. "We're being rotated out," Hargrove announced. "Command wants a full debrief. You'll be flown to Christchurch for medical and psychological evaluation. Until then, you are not to discuss what happened at Vostok 7 with anyone. Is that clear?" We nodded, but no one looked relieved. The idea of leaving Antarctica should have been a comfort, but it felt like a sentence. I wondered if the dreams would follow us north, or if we'd left something of ourselves behind in the ice. The convoy arrived at dusk, headlights cutting through the gloom. The new team looked fresh, eager, unscarred by what waited out on the ice. I watched them unload crates, laughing and joking, oblivious to the rules posted on every door. That night, I found Harris in the mess hall, nursing a cup of coffee gone cold. He looked up as I sat down, his eyes hollow. "You ever think about what it means?" he asked quietly. "That thing in the ice. The rules. The dreams." I shrugged, not trusting myself to answer. He stared into his cup. "I used to believe in order, in rules, that if you followed them, you'd make it home. But what if the rules are just there to keep us from seeing the truth? What if they're not for our safety, but for theirs?" I didn't know what to say. The silence stretched between us, heavy and cold. The next morning, the new team set out for Vostok 7. We watched them go, a line of headlights vanishing into the white. I wanted to warn them, to tell them about the lights, the singing, the thing in the ice. But the rules were clear. Do not discuss what happened. We spent the day packing, preparing for the flight out. Dr. Markova burned her notebook in the incinerator, watching the pages curl and blacken. "Some things are better forgotten," she said, her voice flat. That night, the dreams were worse. I saw the fissure opening, the wings unfolding, the blue light swallowing the world. I woke screaming, sweat freezing on my skin. Harris was already up, pacing the hallway, muttering to himself. At dawn, the radio crackled again. The new team hadn't checked in. No radio contact, no GPS signal. The station chief ordered a search, but the weather was turning, another storm rolling in from the south. We watched the horizon, waiting for headlights, for any sign of life. The wind howled, rattling the windows, and the cold pressed in from all sides. That evening, a single figure appeared out of the storm, staggering toward the station. We rushed outside, dragging him in before the cold could finish him. It was one of the new scientists, face frostbitten, eyes wide with terror. He clung to my arm, shaking. "We found it," he whispered. "We found the angel. It's awake." He collapsed, unconscious, and the medics carried him away. The rules changed again. Rule 8. If anyone returns alone from Vostok 7, quarantine them immediately. Rule 9. If the blue light reaches the station, initiate evacuation protocol. I realized then that the rules weren't just for us. They were for everyone. For anyone who might stumble across the thing in the ice. Anyone who might hear the singing or see the lights. The rules were the only thing standing between us and something ancient, something that didn't care if we lived or died. That night, I sat by the window, watching the snow fall. I thought about Dr. Patel, about the new team, about the thing in the ice. I wondered if it was really an angel, or if that was just the closest word we had for something we couldn't understand. I wondered if the rules would be enough. The next 48 hours passed in a haze of fear and waiting. The storm battered the station, snow piling up against the doors and windows, wind howling like a living thing. The rescued scientist, his name was Dr. Erickson, remained unconscious, feverish and mumbling in his sleep. The medics kept him isolated, but the rest of US could hear him through the walls, whispering in a language none of us recognized. I tried to keep busy, helping the crew reinforce the windows, checking the generators, anything to keep my mind off the dreams. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blue light, the wings, the face in the ice. I started to wonder if I'd ever sleep again. On the third day, the storm broke. The sky was a pale, washed-out blue, and the world outside was silent, smothered under a fresh blanket of snow. The station chief called us together in the comms room. His face was grim. "We've lost contact with the new team," he said. "No radio, no GPS. The last transmission was a burst of static and a single word, awake. Command has ordered a full evacuation. The first transport will arrive in 12 hours. No one cheered. No one even smiled. We just nodded, numb with exhaustion and dread. I went to check on Dr. Erickson. The medics let me in, warning me not to get too close. He was awake, staring at the ceiling, lips moving in silent prayer. When he saw me, he grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "It's not an angel," he whispered, eyes wild. "It's something older. Something that fell before the world was made. The ice was its prison. We broke the seal." I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "You have to warn them. The rules aren't enough. It's awake now. It remembers." He let go, collapsing back onto the cot, eyes rolling back in his head. The medics sedated him, and I left, shaken to my core. I found Harris in the equipment room, packing his gear with mechanical precision. He looked up as I entered, his expression haunted. "We're not getting out," he said quietly. "Not all of us." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but I couldn't. The sense of doom was too strong, pressing down on all of us like the weight of the ice itself. The hours crawled by. We packed, checked the radio, watched the horizon for any sign of the transport. The blue light was visible now, a faint glow on the southern horizon, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. At 2100, the radio crackled. The transport was inbound, ETA 30 minutes. We gathered in the main hall, bags at our feet, weapons close at hand. The medics wheeled Dr. Erickson in on a stretcher, his face pale and drawn. The blue light grew brighter, creeping closer with every passing minute. I felt it in my bones, a cold so deep it made my teeth ache. The first sign of trouble was the singing. It started as a low hum, barely audible over the wind. Then it grew louder, filling the station, vibrating in the walls and the floor. I saw people clutching their heads, eyes squeezed shut, trying to block it out. Dr. Markova started to cry, tears freezing on her cheeks. "It's calling to us," she sobbed. "It wants us to come." Harris barked orders, trying to keep us focused. "Stay together. No one goes outside until the transport lands." But the singing was inside us now, a melody that promised peace, warmth, an end to the cold and fear. I felt myself swaying, drawn toward the door. I bit my tongue, hard, tasting blood. The pain snapped me back, and I grabbed Dr. Markova, pulling her away from the exit. Others weren't so lucky. Two of the new crew staggered outside, faces blank, eyes fixed on the blue light. The cold swallowed them instantly. They didn't even scream. The singing faded as the transport's lights appeared on the horizon, cutting through the gloom. The pilot's voice crackled over the radio, tense but steady. "We're coming in hot. Be ready to move." We rushed outside, dragging our bags, half carrying Dr. Erickson. The cold was worse than ever, biting through our suits, freezing the tears on our faces. The blue light was closer now, almost at the edge of the station. We piled into the transport, the crew slamming the doors shut behind us. The engines roared, and we lifted off, leaving the station and the blue light behind. As we climbed into the sky, I looked back through the window. The station was a tiny island in a sea of white, the blue light swirling around it like a living thing. I saw figures moving in the snow, too tall, too thin, wings unfolding in the darkness. The singing followed us, fading only as we crossed the mountains and left the ice behind. No one spoke on the flight to Christchurch. We sat in silence, haunted by what we'd seen, what we'd done. The rules had kept some of us alive, but they hadn't saved us. Not really. I wondered if anything could. We landed in Christchurch just after dawn, the sky streaked with gold and pink. The warmth felt unreal, almost offensive after so many months of cold. As we disembarked, a team of doctors and military officials met us on the tarmac. They wore masks and gloves, their eyes wary above their surgical gear. We were herded into quarantine, our gear taken away for decontamination. Blood samples, psychological evaluations, endless questions. Did you experience any hallucinations? Any unusual dreams? Did you hear singing? I answered as honestly as I dared, but I left out the worst parts. The way the blue light still flickered at the edge of my vision. The way I sometimes heard wings beating in the silence. Dr. Markova was taken away for further observation. She'd started drawing again, covering the walls of her room with sketches of wings and eyes, symbols that made the doctors nervous. Harris was silent, refusing to answer most questions, staring out the window as if he could still see the ice. The rest of us were kept under observation for a week. Every night, I dreamed of Antarctica, the endless white, the fissure in the ice, the thing that waited below. Sometimes I woke up with frost on my skin, even though the room was warm. Sometimes I woke up screaming, convinced I could hear the singing just outside the door. On the 5th day, a man in a dark suit came to see me. He didn't introduce himself, but his questions were different from the doctor's. He said, voice calm and cold, "Why do you think they exist?" I hesitated, searching for words. "They're there to keep us alive, to keep us from waking something up." He nodded, making a note. "Do you believe the rules are enough?" I shook my head. Not anymore. He closed his notebook, his expression unreadable. "You'll be debriefed again before you're released. Until then, I suggest you get some rest." But rest was impossible. The dreams grew worse, more vivid. I saw the angel in the ice, its eyes opening, wings unfolding. I heard the singing, felt the cold seep into my bones. Sometimes I woke with the taste of snow in my mouth, my breath fogging the air. On the 7th day, we were released. The doctors gave us a clean bill of health, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. We were given new orders, no discussion of the mission, no contact with the media, regular check-ins with military psychologists. The rules followed us home. I tried to return to normal life. I visited my family, spent time with friends, and tried to forget the ice and the blue light. But it was always there, lurking at the edge of my thoughts. I checked the locks on my doors 3 times every night. I avoided mirrors after dark. I kept a notebook by my bed, writing down every dream, every whisper, every shadow that seemed out of place. A month passed, then 2. The dreams faded, but never disappeared. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night, convinced I could hear wings beating outside my window. Sometimes I'd see a flash of blue light in the corner of my eye, gone before I could turn my head. One evening, I got a call from Harris. His voice was thin, strained. "They're sending me back," he said. "Another team went missing. Command wants me to brief the replacements." I felt a chill run through me, colder than any Antarctic wind. "Don't go," I said. "You know what's out there." He laughed, a hollow sound. "It doesn't matter. Someone has to teach them the rules." We talked for a while, sharing memories, trying to make sense of what had happened. Before he hung up, he said, "If you ever dream of wings again, call me. No matter what time." I promised I would. After that, I started seeing news reports, strange weather in Antarctica, unexplained seismic activity, research teams going silent. The official explanations were always the same: equipment failure, bad weather, human error. But I knew better. I knew what was really out there, waiting in the ice. I started writing down the rules, copying them into notebooks, leaving them in places where people might find them. I didn't know if it would help, but it felt like the only thing I could do. Rule 1: never go outside alone. Rule 2: if you see lights on the ice at night, do not approach. Rule 3: if you hear singing, return to base immediately. Rule 4: if you find anything in the ice that looks like a body, do not touch it. Rule 5: if you dream of wings, report to medical. Rule 6: if someone disappears, do not search for them. Rule 7: if you dream of wings more than once, report to command. Rule 8: if anyone returns alone from Vostok 7, quarantine them immediately. Rule 9: if the blue light reaches the station, initiate evacuation protocol. I added a 10th rule, one I'd learned the hard way. Rule 10: if you ever feel the cold inside you, run. I didn't know if anyone would listen, but I had to try. Spring came late that year. I tried to lose myself in routine, morning runs, long drives, hours at the range. But nothing could shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something had followed me back from the ice. I kept the rules close, folded in my wallet, a talisman against the memories that haunted my sleep. One night, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway, heart pounding. A woman's voice, trembling. "Is this Sergeant Carter?" "Yes," I said, sitting up. "Who is this?" "My name is Dr. Emily Reyes. I'm with the Polar Research Initiative. I found your number in a notebook at the Christchurch quarantine facility. I hope you don't mind." I didn't. I was almost relieved. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, then spoke in a rush. I'm at the new outpost near Vostok 7. We've been seeing things, lights on the ice, strange dreams, people hearing music at night. One of our team disappeared yesterday. The others are scared. I found your rules. I think we need help. I closed my eyes, the old fear rising in my chest. Listen to me, Dr. Reyes. You need to get your team inside. Lock every door. Don't go outside, no matter what you see or hear. If anyone starts singing, keep them away from the exits. And if you see the blue light, evacuate. Don't wait for orders. She was silent for a moment. Is it really that bad? It's worse, I said. But the rules can keep you alive. They kept some of us alive. She thanked me, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll do what I can. If we make it out, I'll call you. The line went dead. I sat in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. I wondered how many others had found the rules, how many had ignored them, how many had vanished into the ice. The next day, I called Harris. He answered on the first ring. Another team's in trouble, I said. They found the rules. They're scared. He sighed, the sound heavy with exhaustion. It never ends, does it? No, I said. It doesn't. We talked for a while, sharing what little we knew. Harris had been back to Antarctica twice since our mission, each time with a new team, each time with new rules. They keep changing them, he said. Every time something new happens, they add another rule. But the thing in the ice, it's learning, too. That thought chilled me more than any Antarctic wind. What do you mean? It's adapting, he said. The singing, the lights, the dreams, they're all different now. It's like it's testing us, looking for a way in. I remembered Dr. Erickson's words. It remembers. That night, I dreamed of the fissure again. The ice cracked open, blue light pouring out, wings unfolding to blot out the sky. I woke up gasping, sweat cold on my skin, the taste of snow in my mouth. I wrote down everything I could remember, every detail, every feeling. I added a new rule to my list. Rule 11. If the rules stop working, make new ones. Weeks passed. I watched the news, searching for any mention of Antarctica. Missing researchers, unexplained phenomena, sudden evacuations. The official stories were always the same, but I could read between the lines. The thing in the ice was still there, still waiting, still hungry. One afternoon, I got a package in the mail. No return address, just my name and a Christchurch postmark. Inside was a notebook, filled with sketches and notes in a careful, looping hand. At the back was a single page, torn from a larger pad. We made it out. The rules worked. Thank you, Emily. I stared at the page for a long time, relief and sorrow warring inside me. I was glad they'd survived, but I knew it was only a matter of time before another team went out, before someone else broke the rules, before the thing in the ice found a way through. That night, I sat at my desk, copying the rules into a fresh notebook. I added every detail I could remember, every warning, every lesson learned in blood and fear. I left the notebook in a public library, tucked between books on polar exploration. Maybe someone would find it. Maybe it would save a life. I started to realize that the rules weren't just for Antarctica. They were for anywhere the unknown pressed in, anywhere the world grew thin and something old waited on the other side. The rules were a way to survive the impossible, to hold the darkness at bay. I wondered how many others had their own rules, their own stories, their own scars. Summer came and went. I tried to move on, but Antarctica never really let go. Sometimes, in the middle of a crowded street or a quiet evening at home, I'd catch a glimpse of blue light in a reflection or hear a faint melody just at the edge of hearing. I'd freeze, heart pounding, until I convinced myself it was nothing. But I always checked the locks, always kept the rules close. I started hearing from others, strangers who'd found my number or my email or a copy of the rules I'd left behind. Some were scientists, some were soldiers, some were just people who'd seen something they couldn't explain. Their stories were different, but the fear was always the same. A geologist from Argentina wrote about a crevasse that glowed at night, and a teammate who vanished after following a voice into the dark. A Norwegian pilot described a storm that moved against the wind, and a figure with wings standing on the ice, watching his plane take off. A British medic sent a single line: "The singing is getting louder. We're not alone out here." I answered every message, sharing the rules, offering what little comfort I could. Sometimes I heard back, thanks, relief, stories of survival. Sometimes I didn't. One night, I got a call from Dr. Reyes again. Her voice was steadier this time, but I could hear the exhaustion beneath it. "We're evacuating," she said. The blue light reached the station. "We lost 2 people. The rest of us are heading north." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. She was quiet for a moment. "Do you think it will ever stop?" I thought about the thing in the ice, the way it watched us, the way it learned. "I don't know," I said. "But as long as people keep going down there, as long as they keep breaking the rules, it'll keep trying." She sighed. "We're leaving a warning at the station. Your rules, in every language we know. Maybe it'll help." "Maybe," I said. "Be safe, Dr. Reyes." "You too, Sergeant Carter." After we hung up, I sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the city outside my window. I wondered how many warnings it would take, how many rules, how many lost teams before someone finally listened. A week later, I got a letter from Harris. He'd been rotated out again, this time for good. "They're shutting down Vostok 7, he wrote. "Too many incidents, too many missing people. Command says it's for safety, but I think they're scared. I think they finally believe us." He ended with a new rule. Rule 12. If the station is abandoned, never go back. I added it to my list. I started to notice changes in myself. I was more cautious, more alert. I avoided crowds, kept my back to the wall in restaurants, and watched for exits wherever I went. I knew it was paranoia, but I couldn't help it. The world felt thinner now, more fragile, as if the ice beneath my feet could crack at any moment. Sometimes, late at night, I'd dream of Antarctica. I'd see the fissure opening, the blue light pouring out, the angel unfolding its wings. But sometimes, just before I woke, I'd see something else, a line of people, faces I recognized and faces I didn't, standing together on the ice, holding the rules in their hands. They looked scared, but they stood their ground, facing the darkness. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, the rules were more than just survival tips. Maybe they were a way to fight back, to hold the line against whatever waited in the cold. One morning, I woke to find a new message on my phone. No name, no number, just a single sentence. "The ice is cracking again." I stared at the screen, feeling the old fear rise up. I didn't know who had sent it or where they were, but I knew what it meant. The cycle was starting over. I copied the rules one more time, adding every lesson, every warning, every scar. I left the list in a coffee shop, tucked into a book about polar exploration. I posted it online, in forums and message boards, anywhere someone might see it. I didn't know if it would help, but I had to try, because somewhere, out on the ice, the thing that fell was still waiting, still watching, still hungry, and the only thing standing between us and the darkness were the rules. Months passed. I tried to live a normal life, but the world felt different now, like I was always walking on thin ice, listening for cracks. I kept in touch with Harris and Dr. Reyes, and sometimes with others who'd found the rules. We formed a kind of unofficial network, a lifeline for those who'd seen too much and survived. One evening, I got a message from a young technician named Luis, stationed at a new research facility near the old Vostok 7 site. His email was frantic, the words tumbling over each other. "We found something in the ice. It's not human. The blue light is everywhere. People are hearing music at night. I try to warn them, but they think I'm crazy. What do I do?" I replied immediately, sending him the rules, urging him to get his team inside, to lock the doors, to trust his instincts. I waited for a response, checking my inbox every hour, but none came. A week later, I saw a news report, tragic accident at Antarctic Research Station for missing, presumed dead. The official story was a storm, equipment failure, human error. But I knew better. I recognized the look in the eyes of the survivors, the way they clutched their coats, the way they avoided talking about what had happened. I added another rule to my list. Rule 13. If you warn them and they don't listen, save yourself. It felt cold, but I'd learned the hard way that you can't save everyone. Some people refuse to believe until it's too late. I started to notice patterns in the stories I heard. The blue light always came first, then the singing, then the dreams. Sometimes there were voices calling from the ice, sometimes figures moving just out of sight. The rules worked, but only if you followed them exactly. One mistake, one moment of doubt, and the thing in the ice would find a way in. I began to wonder if the rules were evolving, changing to match the threat. Maybe the thing in the ice was learning from us, adapting to our defenses. Maybe that was why the incidents were becoming more frequent, more intense. I reached out to Dr. Markova, hoping she might have answers. She replied with a short, cryptic message. The old stories say the fallen ones can never truly die. They wait, they watch, they learn. The rules are not just for survival. They are a language, a way to communicate with the darkness. If the rules change, it means the thing in the ice is listening. That thought haunted me. I started to pay closer attention to my dreams, to the whispers at the edge of sleep. Sometimes I thought I heard words in the singing, fragments of meaning that slipped away when I woke. I wrote them down anyway, filling page after page with nonsense syllables and half-remembered melodies. One night, I dreamed I was back at Vostok 7, standing at the edge of the fissure. The blue light pulsed beneath the ice, and the angel was awake, its eyes fixed on me. It spoke, not in words, but in rules. Never go outside alone. Never answer the singing. Never break the line. I woke with a start, heart racing, the words echoing in my mind. I added them to my list, even though they felt more like warnings than instructions. I started to see the rules as a kind of shield, a barrier between us and the thing in the ice. But I also wondered if they were a cage, keeping us trapped in a cycle of fear and survival. Maybe the only way to break free was to find a new way, a new language, a new set of rules. But I wasn't ready to try. Not yet. One afternoon, I got a call from Harris. His voice was tired, but there was a note of hope I hadn't heard before. "I think I found something," he said. "A pattern in the incidents. Every time someone survives, every time the rules work, the thing in the ice gets weaker. It's like we're starving it, denying it the fear and chaos it feeds on." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that all the pain, all the loss, all the rules had a purpose. "Keep sharing the rules," he said. "Keep fighting. Maybe one day we'll be free." After we hung up, I sat at my desk, staring at the list of rules. I realized that they weren't just about survival. They were about resistance, about refusing to give in to the darkness, about holding the line for as long as it took. I copied the rules one more time, adding every lesson, every warning, every hope. I left the list in a hospital waiting room, tucked into a magazine. I posted it online, in new places under new names. Because somewhere, out on the ice, the thing that fell was still waiting. But so were we. And as long as we remembered the rules, we weren't alone. Winter returned, and with it, the old dreams. I saw the fissure open again, the blue light spilling out, the angel's wings stretching across the sky. But this time, I wasn't alone. I stood with others, faces I knew, faces I'd only heard in stories, all of us holding the rules in our hands. The singing was there, but it was softer, fainter, as if the thing in the ice was listening, waiting for us to falter. I woke before dawn, the city outside still and dark. I sat at my desk, reading over the rules, tracing each line with my finger. They felt heavier now, not just words, but a legacy, a burden passed from survivor to survivor. I wondered how many others were out there, keeping watch, holding the line. A week later, I got a letter from Dr. Reyes. She'd made it back to civilization, but she couldn't sleep. "I see the blue light every time I close my eyes," she wrote. "But I keep the rules by my bed. I tell myself they're enough." She ended with a question. "Do you think it will ever end?" I didn't know how to answer. I wanted to tell her yes, that one day the ice would close, the singing would stop, and the world would be safe again. But I couldn't lie. I wrote back, "As long as we remember, as long as we warn others, maybe it won't win. Maybe that's enough." I started to notice small changes in myself. I was less afraid of the dark, more willing to face the unknown. The rules had become a part of me, a way to make sense of a world that no longer made sense. I realized that survival wasn't just about following instructions. It was about refusing to give in, about finding hope in the face of terror. One night, I dreamed of the angel again. But this time, it spoke to me, not in words, but in images, memories, feelings. I saw the first explorers, lost in the snow, writing their own rules in the frost. I saw scientists and soldiers, each adding a line, each surviving another night. I saw the thing in the ice, ancient and hungry, but also afraid of us, of our stubbornness, our refusal to break. I woke with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. I knew the fight wasn't over, but I also knew I wasn't alone. A few days later, I got a call from Harris. He sounded different, lighter, almost hopeful. "I think it's working," he said. "The incidents are down. More teams are surviving. The rules are spreading." I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "Maybe we're finally learning." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe the thing in the ice is just waiting for us to get careless." We laughed, the sound brittle but real. Before he hung up, he said, "Keep the faith. Mason, and keep writing the rules. I promised I would. The seasons turned. I moved to a new city, started a new job, tried to build a life beyond Antarctica. But the rules followed me, a quiet presence in the back of my mind. I kept sharing them, kept listening for stories, kept watching for signs that the ice was cracking again. Sometimes, late at night, I'd get a message from a stranger, someone who'd seen the blue light, heard the singing, survived because they'd found the rules. Each message was a reminder that the fight was still holding. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could win. But I never forgot what I'd seen, what I'd learned. I never stopped checking the locks, never stopped listening to the singing. I knew that the thing in the ice was still out there, still waiting for someone to forget, someone to break the rules. And I knew that as long as I remembered, as long as I warned others, I was doing my part. The final rules: never go outside alone. If you see lights on the ice at night, do not approach. If you hear singing, return to base immediately. If you find anything in the ice that looks like a body, do not touch it. If you dream of wings, report to medical. If someone disappears, do not search for them. If you dream of wings more than once, report to command. If anyone returns alone from Vostok 7, quarantine them immediately. If the blue light reaches the station, initiate evacuation protocol. If you ever feel the cold inside you, run. If the rules stop working, make new ones. If the station is abandoned, never go back. If you warn them and they don't listen, save yourself. Never break the line. I wrote them down one last time, copying them into a battered notebook, the pages worn thin from use. I left the notebook in a train station, tucked behind a row of vending machines. Maybe someone will find it. Maybe it would save a life. As I walked away, I felt the weight of the rules settle on my shoulders, not as a burden, but as a shield. I knew the fight wasn't over. I knew the thing in the ice was still waiting, still watching, still hungry. But I also knew that I wasn't alone. That somewhere, out there, others were keeping watch, holding the line, refusing to give in. And as long as we remembered the rules, as long as we warned each other, as long as we stood together in the face of the darkness, there was hope. Even at the end of the world, even in the coldest, loneliest place on earth, hope was enough.